Appendix 1. Teaching the Dhamma and laying down the Vinaya. The Dhamma refers to the absolute truth, which exists according to its own nature. The Buddha discovered this truth and revealed it to others. Generally, the Pali term Dhamma Desana is used in this context, meaning exposition of the Dhamma, or Dhamma teaching. The term Dhamma Panyati appears once in the Tipitaka, but its meaning is the same as Dhamma Desana, where it refers to presenting or arranging the Dhamma in order to make it more easily understood. The Vinaya is a code of regulations formulated and laid down by the Buddha for the specific purpose of assisting the monastic order, Sangha, which he had established. The Vinaya is directly connected to the Dhamma. It exists in order for the Sangha to benefit from the Dhamma, or to arrive at the Dhamma in the best possible way. In this context, the term Vinaya Panyati is used, meaning to lay down the Vinaya, or it refers to the regulations that comprise the Vinaya. The term Vinaya Desana is used occasionally in the scriptures, increasingly in the later texts, and has the specific meaning of Vinaya terminology, or the method of formulating the Vinaya. Although the term Panyati is occasionally used in the context of the Dhamma, it refers simply to formulating, arranging, classifying, and grouping the truth in order to clarify it, to make it easier to understand and to practice. It is not a matter of laying down new clauses as in the context of the Vinaya. Note that in regards to the Buddha's utterance in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, Maya Dhammo cha Vinayo desito panyato, the commentators translate this passage as the Dhamma that has been taught and formulated, and the Vinaya that has been taught and formulated. The terms taught and formulated here should be understood and distinguished according to the explanations above. Appendix 2, Sila, Vinaya and Sila Dhamma. Moral principles, Sila, not specifically outlined and included in a moral discipline, Vinaya, can be defined as Dhamma on the level of morality. This should not be confused with the Thai term Sila Dhamma, which has a distinct meaning limited to morality and virtue. In this term, Sila refers to the refraining from doing bad or from transgressing precepts. The Dhamma refers to virtuous conduct or teachings promoting virtue. According to the Buddhist teachings, the entire practice of Dhamma is divided into the three stages of training, Tiso Sika: virtuous conduct, Sila, concentration, Samadhi, and wisdom, Panya. Sila, Samadhi, and Panya are all aspects of Dhamma, and therefore there is Dhamma on the level of virtuous conduct, Dhamma on the level of concentration, and Dhamma on the level of wisdom. Some people try to expand the definition of Sila Dhamma, for example by interpreting it as Sila and Dhamma, which in effect encompasses the entire Buddhist teachings. But this is generally not accepted by Buddhist scholars. Most Thai people, when thinking of the term Sila Dhamma, do not think of concentration, the four factors of mindfulness, insight meditation, and the three characteristics, etc. The expansion of this term's definition is therefore limited to academic studies. One can broaden the definition as virtuous conduct as well as other qualities, including concentration and wisdom. Alternatively, one can equate sila here with vinaya. Sila Dhamma thus means vinaya and Dhamma, corresponding to the original term Dhamma Vinaya. As far as this term is generally understood, however, Sila Dhamma refers to Dhamma on the level of morality. In the dictionary of the Royal Institute, Sila Dhamma is defined simply as virtuous conduct. To whichever extent the meaning of this term is expanded, it lies within the confines of the 10 wholesome courses of action, Kusala Kamapata, otherwise known as the ways of righteous conduct, Dhammacharya. Indeed, the term righteous conduct, Dhammacharya, is a suitable substitute for virtuous conduct, Sila Dhamma. Note that although the two words constituting the term Sila Dhamma are etymologically linked to Pali and Sanskrit, the use of this compound is only found in the Thai language. A simple definition one sometimes finds for sila is a set of prohibitions. This negative definition came about as a way to explain the meaning of sila on a basic level, but to stick to this as the only definition is both limiting and incorrect. Indeed, even sila, as a code of discipline, vinaya, for example, the Bhikkhu Vinaya contains both prohibitions and directives for positive action, together for formal community meetings to undertake communal responsibilities, example, the duties of a monk in charge of food distribution, to act with humility and respect, to endeavour to be of service to others, etc. These are all matters of sila. Furthermore, the discussion of virtuous conduct often overlooks the matter of earning a livelihood, which is a vital part of sila. To avoid an overly narrow understanding of sila, one should develop a more comprehensive view, including right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Appendix 3. The 5 precepts and the 10 wholesome courses of action. The term Panchasila, 5 precepts, is, on the whole, a more recent term. In the Tipitaka, it is used only rarely, and when it is used, the precepts are not enumerated. It is used as a tool for recollection, or it is used in a technical sense. It is found at Vin 2, 161 to 162. But without listing the precepts, and at PS 146 to 47. Here, when the factors are explained, the 10 ways of righteous conduct are mentioned instead of the precepts. In the commentaries and later texts, the term is abundantly used. In the Tipitaka, the more common references to the 5 precepts include the terms 5 virtues, Panchadhamma, and 5 training rules, Sikha Pada, or else the 5 precepts are mentioned without a heading. Further references to the 5 precepts include bright qualities, Sukhadhamma, an absence of fearful retribution, and a defining quality of a lay person's morality. The 5 precepts are also included as part of the householder's observances, Gihi Vata or Gahata Vata. Regarding the 10 wholesome courses of action, or the 10 ways of righteous conduct, there are many alternative names for these qualities. There are also many passages where these 10 qualities are listed without a heading. The section in the Pali Canon that contains the longest description of these qualities is at AV 249 to 308, running to 59 pages. It appears that in general contemporary Buddhist teachings, there is more emphasis on the negative aspects of the 10 wholesome courses of action, or ways of righteous conduct, an emphasis on avoidance and omission, than the positive aspects, on what should be performed or practiced, even though the Pali Canon describes both positive and negative aspects. Apart from the 5 precepts and the 10 ways of righteous conduct, morality, sila, is also presented according to the factors of the Eightfold Path, equals the first 7 factors of Dhammacharya, or according to the teaching on the 4 vices of conduct, kama, kilesa. Appendix 4, classifying the 10 ways of righteous conduct into the 3 trainings. Note that A1 269 to 270, the Buddha classifies the 8th and 9th factors of the righteous ways of conduct, Dhammacharya, equals the 10 wholesome courses of action, kusala kama pata, i.e. non-covetousness, anavidya, and non-ill will, abhyapada, as citta sampada, mental cultivation, mental accomplishment, which means that they are part of the training in higher mentality, adi citta sikha. They are part of concentration, samadhi. The first 7 factors of righteous ways of conduct are classified as sila sampada, the accomplishment of virtue. The 10th factor is classified as diti sampada, accomplishment of view. This is because the 8th and 9th factors are devoid of the first 2 hindrances, nitvarana. Covetousness, abhyaja, vidya, and ill will, abhyapada. The abandonment of the 5 hindrances is the initial step in reaching attainment concentration, appanna samadhi, and accessing jhana. Non-covetousness and non-ill will are states devoid of the first 2 hindrances. The absence of the hindrances in itself equals concentration, samadhi. There are other passages, however, in which these 2 factors are classified as wisdom factors. The reasons for classifying these 2 factors either as factors of concentration or as factors of wisdom is such. A state of mind possessing non-covetousness and non-ill will, or the development of these factors in the mind, is classified as training in higher mentality, as concentration, thoughts or intentions consisting of these 2 factors was classified as right intention, samma sankappa, as training in higher wisdom in the presentation of the wholesome courses of action at M.I. 287 to 288. The emphasis is on thoughts and intentions consisting of these 2 factors, and therefore they are classified under right intention. When viewed as pure mental factors, however, they are classified under mental cultivation, as explained above. Note also in this context that if one covets the belonging of someone else, but one is not yet intent on acquiring it for oneself, then one is not corrupted. The same is true if one becomes angry but has not yet begun to harbour evil thoughts and to wish for someone else to be harmed. Appendix 5, ill effects resulting from transgression of the 5 precepts. The commentaries present principles for judging the severity of ill effects resulting from killing various sorts of creatures based on the following criteria. 1. Degree of virtue. Killing someone of great virtue has dire consequences, while killing a creature endowed with a meager or no spiritual qualities has less serious consequences. Example, killing an arahant is more serious than killing an unenlightened person. Killing a domestic animal is more serious than killing a wild animal. 2. Size. In regard to animals whose merits are more or less equal, killing a large animal is more serious than killing a small animal. 3. Effort. Making great effort to kill is more serious than making little effort. 4. Defilement or intention. If the defilements or intentions are strong, there are more serious ill effects than if the defilements or intentions are weak. Example, killing with anger or out of premeditated hatred is more serious than killing in self-defense. The commentaries offer a similar analysis in regard to the other precepts. For example, the consequences of stealing correspond to the value of the stolen object, the virtue of the owner of the object, and the degree of effort made in stealing the object. The consequences of sexual misconduct depend on the virtue of the violated person, the intensity of defilement, and the degree of effort made. The consequences of lying are determined by the interests and advantages at stake. Example, the case of someone who is reluctant to give up a possession and who claims he doesn't have it is less serious than of someone who gives false testimony in court. The situation of a renunciant speaking a falsehood as a joke is less serious than him deliberately and falsely claiming to have achieved a spiritual realization. The ill effects of consuming intoxicants depend on the defilements or unwholesome mind states occurring at the time of drinking, on the amount consumed, and on the effects of drinking that lead to evil and unskillful behavior. Appendix 6. Variant meanings of Vinaya. The commentaries refer to the Vinaya in the sense of a code of precepts or rules as a prescribed code of discipline, Panyati Vinaya. There exist, however, several other important terms in which the word Vinaya is used. One of these, which is found frequently and has a similar meaning to that just mentioned, is Arya Vinaya, which refers to the code of conduct, way of life, or system of training of noble beings. This term corresponds to the term Sugata Vinaya, which the Buddha defined as brahmacharya, the holy life, or the way leading to a supreme life. This is consistent with the commentaries which define Arya Vinaya as the Buddhist religion. This definition is broader than that of Vinaya in the context of virtuous conduct, Sila. Appendix 7. Practice for the welfare of the many folk. Apart from those passages cited in the main text above, there are many more examples in the Pali Canon of the teaching on practicing for the well-being and happiness of all beings. For example, the sending forth of the disciples to proclaim the teachings was for this purpose. The welfarer and the welfarer's discipline, Sugata Vinaya, exist for this purpose. The Buddha recommended studying, practicing, and rehearsing the Dhamma so that the holy life, the Buddhist religion, will last for a long time in order to benefit all beings. The Buddha emphasized Sangha harmony and warned against Sangha schism, interpersonal quarrels, incorrect teachings on the Dhamma Vinaya, and leaders in the Sangha who possess wrong view out of consideration for the well-being of the multitudes. The essential principle of practicing for the well-being of the many folk is to establish people in the noble path, Ariyanaya Dhamma, so that they possess virtuous qualities, Kalyana Dhamma, and wholesome qualities, kusala dhamma. Appendix 8. Honoring the Dhamma, honoring the Vinaya. The Buddha honored the Dhamma, and he said that whenever the Sangha is possessed of greatness, then he also honors the Sangha. This practice of veneration accords in principle with both the 6 and the 7 kinds of respect, which include respect for the Master, the Buddha, respect for the Dhamma, respect for the Sangha, and respect for the training, Vinaya. There is one noteworthy point to make here about the term belief in reference to Arahants. On one level, the term belief can be used in relation to the Dhamma. Buddhist teachings classify this belief as one stage in the development of wisdom, corresponding to the term faith. In this context, Arahants have passed beyond this stage of belief because they have penetrated and realized the truth for themselves and do not need to believe anyone else. On another level, the term belief can be used in relation to the Vinaya or to a set of directives which are connected to a social code of discipline, corresponding to the term obedience. In this context, Arahants are obedient or highly disciplined, as confirmed by a passage in the scriptures stating that if the Buddha commanded an Arahant or other awakened person to walk into a bog, the Arahant would obey without hesitation. Appendix 9. Showing respect according to seniority. The use of seniority, i.e. the number of years that a monk has been ordained, as the standard of showing respect, is the most appropriate, convenient, and practical method of conduct, and it accords with the Buddha's aim for the Sangha to be an example for others, if not using ancestry, social standing, or caste as the criterion for respect. An alternative criterion is to use the level of spiritual realization as the standard. But this method would be confusing and ultimately ineffective, because realization is not obvious and is difficult to prove, and realized persons do not go about boasting about their achievements. There were monks who proposed this standard, but the Buddha refused to adopt it. What is particularly worthy of attention here is that while the Buddha chose seniority as the criterion for showing respect in the context of social relationships, which relates to external conditions, in the context of training in order to reach the highest goal, which is an internal factor and lies at the essence of the Buddhist teachings, he considered spiritual virtue to be the ideal and the true criterion for respect. Those monks who receive honor according to the statutes of the Vinaya or according to rules of social interaction should be aware of the truth, that is, the spiritual qualities that a person has realized, or righteous conduct, for example, to be one who has practiced well, supatipanno. As mentioned in the 9 attributes of the Sangha, that truly make a person worthy of respect, and that these spiritual qualities must be cultivated within oneself. The Buddha gave many reminders of this truth to the elders of the Sangha, for example, in this Dhammapada verse. Having grey hair does not make a person an elder. He may be ancient in years, but he gets old and vain. One who possesses honesty, virtue, harmlessness, restraint, and control, such a one who is a sage purged of impurities, is indeed called an elder. One passage in the Pali Canon divides elders into 3 kinds: elders by birth, i.e. by seniority, jati thera, elders by truth, dhamma thera, and elders by convention, elders simply by name, sammati thera. Elders designated according to the Vinaya may be classified as elders by convention. Another passage mentions 4 qualities that make a person an elder. Appendix 10. Is Buddhism a pessimistic religion? The passage by Venerable Sariputta, quoted under the section Theistic Morality vis a Doctrine of Natural Truth, is cited in Albert Schweitzer's Indian Thought on its Development. It is recited in Joseph L. Sutton's Problems of Politics and Administration in Thailand. In this latter book, pp. 2-8, Professor Sutton refers to other Dhamma teachings, for example the teachings on karma, rebirth, and the retreat or escape from the world, to corroborate his critical viewpoint. I have touched upon the Buddhist teachings unintentional action, karma, kama, already in earlier chapters. As for the claim that the teaching on rebirth leads to procrastination, as opposed to Christian doctrine which emphasizes a single lifetime, this can be answered by the Buddhist teaching on the extreme difficulty of being reborn as a human being. The chances for human rebirth are less than that of a blind turtle sticking its head through a hole in a piece of wood adrift in the ocean. Furthermore, Buddhism teaches that redemption is not possible through baptism or through confession of one's sins. As for the issue of withdrawing from worldly matters, Professor Sutton refers to the following quote: "Those who love nothing in this world are rich in joy and free from pain." This quotation is found in the Udana Tasama hi te suki no witasoka ye sang piyang nati kuhinchi loke. The Pali word for love here is piya, which refers to a form of infatuation leading to personal attachment. This passage describes the attributes of an awakened being. It emphasizes liberation and the happiness of liberation, free from selfish infatuation and endowed with unbounded love, metta. When one's mind is free from suffering and selfish attachment, there is a complete spaciousness to act and abide with loving kindness and compassion. One acts purely for the well-being of other beings, and as is epitomized by the maxim, Bahujana Sukhaya Lokanu Kampaya, for the happiness of the many folk, for the compassionate assistance of the world. However limited Professor Sutton's understanding was, or whatever his intentions, his comments can be useful as a reminder for Buddhists to deepen their knowledge and to clarify their understanding of the Buddhist teachings. There are many Western scholars who share Professor Sutton's criticisms, and it must be conceded that prevalent beliefs and misunderstandings among Thai Buddhists contribute to such criticism. When Buddha-Dhamma was first published 30 years ago, Westerners had a limited understanding of Buddhism and harbored various misconceptions. For example, that Buddhism teaches to see the world in a negative light, filled only with suffering. Today, in 2011, this situation has changed dramatically. Appendix 11. Moral Precepts, Sila, and Religious Practices, Vata. Moral precepts, sila, and religious practices, vata, differ. According to the Mahanidesa, sila refers to self-restraint, self-control, and the non-transgression of precepts, while vata refers to undertaking religious practices or vows. The rules in the Bhikkhu Vinaya contain both moral precepts and religious practices. Aesthetic practices Dutanga or Vata, not moral precepts, Sila. Rules of practice that are Vata but not Sila, like the ascetic practices, are extra. They are means to practice strictly in order to enhance self-discipline and self-development, and they emphasize contentment with little. But they are not mandatory. They are undertaken suiting one's disposition and level of preparedness. This differs from moral precepts, which each member of a community must keep. If someone fails to keep them, there are harmful consequences both to the individual and collectively. And if the moral precept is included in the Vinaya, there are designated forms of punishment. Furthermore, moral precepts are generally fundamental principles of behavior, whereas religious practices are supplementary, increasing a sense of virtue and discipline and supporting the precepts, especially by removing or decreasing the opportunity to transgress them. In any case, some religious practices, Vata, although they may appear austere and strict, are incompatible with Buddhist principles. The Buddha forbade them, and in some cases they are incorrect according to the Vinaya. Examples include the vow of silence, Mugavata. This vow prevents wrong speech. For example, lying. The Buddha criticized this practice and called it behaving like cattle. The vow to eat only fruit that falls naturally from a tree. This vow prevents a person from harming animals and plants. It is considered an overly austere practice kept by members of non-Buddhist sects who hide from society. Note that there are also secondary and minor observances called Vata that complement moral precepts, Sila. In some Pali editions of the Tipitaka in Thai script, there is some mix-up and confusion between the terms Vata, religious practice, austere practice, and Vata, religious observance.